There are really only two ways that you can make money in business. Either you get new clients or you keep the ones that you currently have, right? New revenue versus recurring revenue. And my accountant says to me all the time, inside of Link VA at least, retention is the most important metric. It doesn't matter how many shiny new clients that I bring in, if I'm just pouring them into a leaky bucket, right? They're going to end up on the floor either way. And I would quite like them to stay in my bucket, right? That's how you actually fill it. Now, in my many years of business, God, I hate saying it like that. It makes me feel like I should start wearing some sensible shoes. But retention has never been a set and forget thing, right? You don't solve retention once and then move on because it shifts. It's affected by the market or by your competitors or by AI and automations, by the quality of your staff, by the expectations you've accidentally created, by economic cycles, by just about a million small behavioral changes that you don't notice until revenue starts to dip. What worked in 2025 won't necessarily work in 2026. And what worked in 2026 won't necessarily work in 2027, right? The principles might stay the same, but the tactics, they're going to evolve. And if you're not paying attention, you'll wake up one day wondering why all the clients are just quietly slipping out the back door. So today, welcome to the Virtual CEO. I'm Amy, CEO of Link VA. I want to talk about client retention. And not the, love your customers nonsense. I want to talk about understanding why your clients are leaving you. Because if you don't diagnose the reason properly, you will fix the wrong problem. And you will still be standing there with your leaky bucket of clients. So let's get into it. So to begin with, there are really only three reasons why a client leaves you that are inside of your control, right? You cannot control what is happening inside of their personal life. I have tried. If they leave because they can't afford it anymore, or they get sick, or their house burns down, or their business collapses, right? That's all outside of you. My manifesting powers are not that strong yet. One day, perhaps. But outside of life, blowing up, there are really only three ways. One, your product or service doesn't do what it says it does on the box. Two, your competitors are doing it better or cheaper. Or three, your clients don't think you care about them, right? That's it. Everything else just kind of fits somewhere in there. And if I've offended you already, I normally only offend people who know I'm right but aren't ready to hear it. And for those people, there's a skip button. But for the rest of us, let's do some deep diving. Okay, I'll start with the first one. Your product or your service doesn't do what it says it does on the tin. I had to sell a car the other day, right? And I absolutely could not be bothered dealing with like marketplace admin, right? All the tire kickers and the test drivers and whatever. So I kind of fell down this rabbit hole of this like cash for cars companies. And if you've ever had to deal with them, slimy crowd, right? Every single website was screaming things like $1,000 minimum offer guaranteed, pick up in 3 hours, quotes within 2 hours. And not one of these 6 companies I contacted could fulfill what they promised. Not a single one. Now, technically, I never became a customer, but the principle still stands. If you are promising something that you cannot consistently deliver, you will not retain people. If you say, 50% higher tax returns, you better be able to deliver. If you say, I'll help you make your first million, you better be able to deliver. If you say quotes in 2 hours, then answer your fucking phone in 2 hours, right? Otherwise, you're going to start collecting some very truly heinous Google reviews, right? And your business model becomes the most painful model in existence, which is high churn and just constant hunting required. And hunting every month just to cover wages and bills is so fucking exhausting. Retention gives you a cushion. It gives you breathing room. And it means that you're not waking up every 30 days thinking, well, if I don't close X deals this month, we're screwed, right? So if you're losing clients, the first question is simple. Does my product actually do what it says it does? Or am I maybe being a little bit too bold in my marketing? And by the way, the answer is not necessarily tone down the promise or tone down your marketing. Sometimes the answer is build the delivery so that you can deliver on your promise. If you promise people that they can make their first million with you, you need a system that makes that realistically achievable. And ideally, you've proven it before. If it's possible, good, then map it out, right? Where do people fall off? Where are the bottlenecks? Where do they get confused? Where do they sabotage themselves? What support do they need at each stage? What systems and checks and balances do I need to put in place to make sure that this promise gets delivered? Now, I've worked with enough humans to know that they will not always hold up their end of the bargain. Okay, that is life. But your job is to give your average customer the best possible chance of success. So plot it properly. Pressure test your delivery. And if you can honestly say, yes, the majority of my clients achieve the promise when they engage properly, great, fantastic. That isn't the cause of your retention problem then. We move on to the next one. So second reason that clients don't stay is your competitors are doing it better and / or cheaper, right? Now, I have a lot of competitors in the VA marketplace, and you better believe that people are offering cheaper VAs than me. But if my clients currently see a cheaper VA offer out there, 99% of them still won't go for it. And why is that? Because I'm better, right? And I'm not trying to be egotistical when I say that. If you offer the exact same thing as your competitors, then yes, you are only ever going to be able to compete on price. And competing on price it's a slimy, exhausting business, right? To be the cheapest means that someone, somewhere, is getting screwed. Either your team is underpaid or undersupported or burnt out, or your customers are getting a subpar delivery, right? Good people and good products do not come dirt cheap. Something has to give. So you have a choice. You can start offering your same service cheaper than your competitors. And if you know anything about game theory, you know exactly how that ends, right? They lower theirs, you lower yours, and you slowly just underbid each other until one of you dies, right? Margins shrink, quality drops, everyone's miserable. Or you make your product undeniably better so that you can justify charging more. So for me, that meant deciding very early on that if I was going to run a VA business, my clients were going to get more than cheap labor, right? One of the biggest pains in hiring a VA is reliability, right? People showing up, people actually doing the work, not disappearing at mid-project. So I hired team leaders to manage teams of VAs in-house, right? That cost me money, but it also protects the client. I decided that I didn't want to run a company where my staff were, barely scraping by. So we had higher salaries. We added healthcare. We added mental health support. We built an actual culture inside of the business that attracts better people. And better people do better work, and better work retains clients. Then AI hit. And instead of pretending that it wasn't happening, we built ongoing training so that all of our VAs could upskill and adapt as clients' needs evolved, because I refuse to let my service become obsolete. Now, with just those things alone, I can justify charging more because the service is objectively better than my competitors. So you need to do a competitor analysis, right? Look at what they charge and what you get. And if you are roughly the same, you can either lower your prices, which I don't recommend, or you can add value. And adding value isn't just asking the customers what they want, by the way. If Henry Ford had asked people what they wanted, they would have just said a faster horse, right? You need to understand what the underlying problem that you solve and then improve how you solve it, right? Faster, cleaner, more reliable, less friction, right? And remember, this isn't a set and forget. Your competitors are evolving too. New competitors that you don't even see yet are creeping in, which is for me, software, automations, AI, market shifts, right? Do not assume that because you are great now, you will also be great tomorrow. If your customers are leaving you, if they get what it says on the tin, if your product is genuinely better than your competitors and they are still walking, there's only one reason left. And this is the one that you're going to get the least feedback on. You might be a bit of a dick, right? Or you're just not nice to work with. Now, you might be thinking, I'm fine, I'm pleasant, I'm professional. Okay, great. Maybe you are. But something about the experience of working with you is not. And if you are a dick and you know it, I don't know how to fix that, man. Maybe a different podcast. I have dated enough people to know that that kind of personality shift usually requires a major life event. And I'm not in the business of freezing your assets or orchestrating the deaths of your loved ones so that you can learn to develop empathy. I don't know what to tell you. But if you're not that much of a dick, then let's go deeper. I read a book several years ago called Never Lose a Customer Again. Solid book if you want to rework your delivery system. But if you don't have time to read it, here is what it says in essence. Essentially, your customers need to feel loved, and you need them to or you need to know them well enough to anticipate what they're experiencing at each stage of working with you, and then have a communication strategy or something to mitigate whatever that feeling is. So in the beginning, what are you doing about buyer's remorse, right? Because that is very real. People spend a chunk of money and then immediately panic. So how are you addressing that? Are you just sending an invoice and disappearing, right? It's like when you were a kid and the doctors gave you a lollipop at the end of the consultation. I didn't hate going to the doctor as a kid, and now I fucking hate it. Maybe it has something to do with the lollipop. Maybe someone should look into that. But as a kid, getting the lollipop at the end mitigated the emotional upheaval of, a strange person that smells of clean, the worst of the smells, by the way, jabbing you with a needle. So when you have to jab your clients with a needle, what are you doing about it? You need to understand what all the needles are, right? Where do they feel overwhelmed? Where do they feel lost? Which will help you understand, where do they need reassurance? What communication are you giving them? What are the touch points? What are the small gestures? And I don't just mean you're an automated check-in email that says, welcome to the family with a little stock photo of people high-fiving or something, which actually, that would make me laugh if you said that. So, that might work. Half a point. But I mean, what actual thought are you putting into this? Now, the amount of businesses that do this well, and I have seen them run just purely off of love, and it's insane. I know service providers who are not the best in their field, right? They're not the most technical or the most polished, but they retain clients because people feel good around them. They feel seen, they feel valued, they feel like they're a part of something. Some people call that loyalty, right? But people are not loyal to people or businesses that treat them like nothing, or worse, treat them like a transaction, right? Do you remember your clients' kids' names? Do you follow up with them when you know that they've been in hospital? Do you, I don't know, congratulate them when they launch something? Do you compliment their haircut when they get one? Do you ever check in with them when there isn't an invoice attached to the message? Right? And by the way, this isn't equally important for everyone. Some clients are robots and they are perfectly happy just being treated like a little spreadsheet and following the bouncing ball. They want outcome, they want efficiency, they want minimal chat, and that's fine. If you have done your job properly, you know that about them. They are perfectly happy surviving off of those first two retention strategies. But not factoring in the third one means that you're missing out on easy retention for 70% of the non-sociopaths out there. I say 70%, I don't know what the ratios are. Maybe there are just more sociopaths in business. And no shade, love me a sociopath, whatever. The majority is the main thing to take away from this, right? Most people are not that way inclined. They respond to warmth. They respond to being known. They respond to being valued. I literally left a finance broker once because I always had to chase him up for stuff that he promised to send me. And he was mostly nice on the phone, probably very smart, and would probably get my mortgage down. But he treated me like I was an inconvenience. So I just decided to go elsewhere, right? Give a girl some love. It's not hard. When you get retention right, everything in your business calms down, right? Your marketing doesn't have to scream so loud. Your sales team don't need to hunt like their rent depends on it every single month. And your cash flow smooths out. You can make decisions from a place of strategy instead of survival. That is what retention buys you, just breathing room. So if you're frustrated that clients are leaving, first of all, good. Frustration means that you care. Now turn that frustration into a diagnosis instead of denial, right? Ask yourself which of the three it is and be brutally honest about the answer, right? Maybe it is all three. But once you identify the actual problem, then you can fix it. And fixing it is far more empowering than blaming everything outside of your control. Thank you for listening to The Virtual CEO. If you got some value out of this, give us a like, share it around, do the little algorithm dance. Write in if you want some business advice or you want me to cover a particular topic. And no, I will not be covering maths recaps for anyone asking. As always, I will catch you next week.